Manhood, brought to you in part by Solomon's Bespoke.
This is Manhood. Thank you for staying with us once again. And another really, really big topic where we always aim to be better as brothers. And remember what we always say, we're not speaking on behalf of all men, we're speaking to all men. Even though this topic in particular might speak to everyone, because what is indeed your breaking point? So the topic is exactly that. What is your breaking point? To my right, Johan Seaudike, Behavior Change Consultant. To his right, Franz Gillezreau.
Got it.
I got it. Yeah. So Franz Gillezreau, Taekwondo instructor. I'm also into mixed martial arts. And to his right, Davy Marie, media personality on Freedom. We're gonna go straight into breaking point. I mean, that's such a wide topic. I mean, there's so many areas of a breaking point, whether it be a breaking point with work, breaking point with leisure, breaking point with fitness. How much, I mean, what it really comes down to is how much can you take before you explode, I suppose? Collapse. Snap.
Yeah, because I think everybody have a breaking point, right? Mm-hmm. And that is something that's important. Some people say, nothing could break me. Sometimes you beg to differ because some days different to others. Some days, no matter what come at you, you're good. You can take it. But then other days, the first thing that happens in the morning, right, it throw you off. And I think an important part is for every man or everybody that's watching is to know or even signs when you start to reach there. And before we go, and I'll give an example. I know when I start to lose my patience, because most times I'm a patient person. Right? You know, if somebody talking too long, I could listen to them. If somebody doing something that annoy me, I have some leeway for it. But from the time I realize I can't take it, I know something amiss for me, and I need to start to pay attention.
Well, what that sounds like to me is understanding your triggers. I don't know if that making sense. You know, there's a saying, the straw that broke the camel back, that was the last straw. We can't measure breaking point by no stretch of our wildest imagination. Because what your tolerance level in pain might be, it will be different to him, myself, and of course the gentleman here. So the thing about it is, I believe what Johansi said was correct. Nothing to bother me. We should not have that attitude at all. That attitude. Things do bother you. It's just at what point is it going to reach that threshold or that threshold of breaking? But it must bother you. And if you're living in that sense of denial where you want to lie to yourself. When you break, that's it there.
But you see, like you just said, that the straw that broke the camel's back, right? Means that it's not necessarily that mightn't be what got you there, but it's something that became the last straw. So, for example, what that straw is, that's just the catalyst. Well, that mightn't be what the real problem is, the underlying problem, correct, which is what you indeed have to address. So I could be really pent up and pissed off with a particular situation at work, right? And then I go down the road and someone gives me a bad drive and I trip at that point. Yes, I broke in terms of broke character, broke my cool and all the rest of it, but that wasn't really, in another circumstance, I'd have just been like...
It wouldn't have bothered you.
It wouldn't have bothered me at all. And Franz, well, you come in from a very disciplined background now, Taekwondo and mixed martial arts. You being the king of cool must be par for the course.
Well, friends of mine would disagree with that. Well, to get back to like breaking point, I think a part of it has to be knowing when to ease off the pressure. So you mentioned fitness. Going to the gym seems like a normal, healthy thing. Too much of anything is good for nothing, right?
Agreed.
So you need rest days. You need rest in between the sets. You need recovery periods in between. Depending on your level of fitness and the activity you're pursuing, you need proper recovery protocols, maximize sleep, cold plunges. It depends. If you don't take those recovery periods, you are approaching your breaking point. Your body will break down. And it's the same thing, I'm sure, Johannes, you can attest, with the brain. And levels of stress that you are exposed to, you need to be able to rest and reset and refocus. And then, because stressor builds on top of stressor builds on top of stressor, and if you don't have an outlet or an escape, not even just an outlet, but a shelter from the stress, you're going to snap. And the breaking point will be different for anybody. Like, I don't know if you've ever had such a bad day or week or whatever. You're just barely holding it together and the paper towel pulls bad and it rips. And you're like, man,
you mash up the roll,
Just-
you mash up
yeah,
the
just
little
put-
hole
Yeah.
on everything.
and all it is,
Yeah.
And
for
you
real.
look. Sometimes you may do this in terms of anger management. You see these people have all these rage rooms and things like that,
Right.
And you destroy something. You realize, wow, that's an inanimate object. So I've destroyed this TV. Or I've thrown this away. Who now has to go and clean it up? Who now has to go and buy it back? But at that point,
You don't care.
Yeah, at that
You
point,
don't care.
good sense doesn't prevail. And what I want to really have in this discussion, this chat here today, because we've all been there at our
Yep.
breaking points.
We
Even
have had
you,
it.
like you're saying, that you maintaining a sense of cool or sense of calm is discipline, but at the same point, there will come a point that even persons who say, "Oh, nothing could break them," to me that's just like a pressure cooker. Things just building until that moment where when they trip, you trip big. And tripping for our discussion is not just break point where you act out in anger or you do something in rage. There can be the other side of things where you give up on life. That's your breaking point. So there are many areas here, and I was discussing just before we started the show that there are things that I have done in life that I said, I don't understand based on a religious upbringing. When I
Right.
think of anything like taking my life, if it does come to you because you're at a point of depression for whatever reason, I think to myself, wow, I was raised to think, okay, well, if you do, you're going to hell, right? But I look back in our discussion, which is what we do so many times on this show, and I look back at some actions that I've taken, whether it be going for a mile swim out in Mearo, in the currents, and coming back, or driving a car with like I said, the speedometer
Just moving.
tapping, and realize that, okay, well, I'm not consciously making a decision here, but you're just kind of living in the whatever,
Well,
numb.
What happens is, and you see, they use the word numb. What happens is when we feel too much pressure, right? Your body, your mind can't take it. So what it does, it starts to dissociate. Start to dissociate from reality. And dissociation could take different forms. So you're driving, you don't even have to be fast. You just, how I reach here? Like sometimes you lose, I wouldn't say consciousness, but you lose time, right? You sit down and then you realize, wait, now, how long I sitting down here? You sit down and end up scrolling on your phone, and then you realize, wait, now 4 hours pass. It's because a lot going on in your life, right? So in that moment, you're thinking about it, and then your brain just say, yo, there's too much, let me just kind of glaze out. And that happens to many of us, Even sometimes when you think you have problems concentrating. Normally, I could function in work, or I could function in school, or wherever it is. But some are looking at the book and are just not seeing anything. I'm looking at this, or sometimes people talking to you, and people think you
Just
there with them,
zoning
you
out.
know. But you're not there at all. It's because at that moment, your brain just saying, this is too much for me. And I just going off, wherever I going off, or I just turning off and
Just
nothing
self-protect. But what if what happens when you don't self-protect? You brought up just now about triggers. Now, triggers are things that when you're at a certain moment, because there's certain times that certain things that could be said, and what could be determined as right now your trigger points, and a word that might be said, but at the time, if you're not at the height, almost ready to blow or burst or combust, that can be said, and you can easily diffuse the situation and walk away. And then another time when you've built up, certain things can be said that might force you to react in a particular way. A lot of times with men, we have this word, disrespecting me. You're disrespecting me. And when you look at it, nobody's disrespected you. It could be either a lack of knowledge of understanding what I've said, not being in a position to really take on fully what has been said, and therefore you may act out in a violent way. But that in itself, I believe, is a trigger to possible trauma from childhood and all these other things that is leading you to that breaking point at this particular stage.
Just to throw in something in there, right? We don't even understand if we reach that breaking point, what is next? What could happen? And if we don't have those discussions as to edifying men, when you reach this breaking point, these are the dangers that follow. If you ever get here, these are some of the possibilities. Because in our minds, we might think, hey, what is the worst could happen? But if we're not telling persons, edifying them, getting that information out there, if you reach that point and you're feeling that pressure, if we don't look at the signs, if we don't dress back and allow a safe space for you to breathe, to exhale, then we will bury you.
Also, like you said there's sometimes a point of no return, because you could be now sitting down in a cell, for example, now telling yourself, realizing the mistake that you made.
Exactly.
But it can't be erased because you've reached a breaking point that for all intents and purposes, that everyone will say, wow, you had I could understand what led to this behavior. And any sane person will go insane if you went through these series of things. Like find out, for example, you get horn, this happen, you lose your job. Different things have happened that then results in you, say, knocking somebody out in a bar, and then you're in jail now for assault. There's still, the courtroom may still determine it as well. That's still assault, right? You're still supposed
You're
to
still
be...
liable to the...
You're still liable.
Yeah,
you
because
still should be supposed to be...
Explains does not excuse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's in the discussion here, it's really what are some of the ways to... apart from going to see a Johan, say, for example, or doing mixed martial arts, what are some of the ways to recognize, as you said, about that breaking point, and first have that discussion to know that to our brothers out there, that you're not alone in all of these circumstances, no matter what you're going through. I guarantee you, many, many other persons are going through this. I mean, you had a story, Franz, that I mean, up to you. Whether you want to share.
Literally why I'm here.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you shared it with me, and I asked you to be here because, as I said, many, many men and persons out there have experienced or are thinking about very similar situations, but just we don't talk. And among our friends, when it's too late, you go, I didn't even realize something was wrong.
And there's a reason for that, because we minimize each other's feelings. So your partner coming to you and talking to you. We sit down here as men and we talking something. And we just watching each other and like, boy, you are a big man, boy. What is that? What are you doing? We're really telling us. And, we're not taking that stock to think, you know what? When we move away from him and we go back into our space, what is going to happen to you, Auntie? What's going to happen to Robert? What's going to happen to Davy? You understand what I'm saying? Because we minimizing each other's feelings. And as you just mentioned, when something happens, boy, I was seeing it. You did say this and you know this. But you had the opportunity to save your brother. Remember,
well, some people also don't know how.
I could take that.
Wanting to know how, well, not knowing how, then you just make a joke out of it. I mean, also West Indian culture is, peacock, fatigue. But if you don't know how, and maybe it's too heavy a conversation to have in the setting you're in the moment, you just intend to come back to it. You're like, oh gosh, don't take that on, man.
Well, let me show you a spin to that. Robert mentioned it a little while ago. Outer character. So I know your hands. I know the team. We know each other. And then you just get silent in the bar. You're normally talkative. You're normally laughing. You're jovial. Your outer character. I could laugh at you. I could pick on you. But your outer character. Your woman leave you. Something happen. Boy, get over that now, boy. But something traumatic has happened to you. You are not the same person. But guess what? We minimizing that feeling because in our minds, you will snap out of it.
Yeah, because it wouldn't bother you.
That's the point.
And that's
the point.
That, I think, is what is also another part of it, is because you feel like it wouldn't affect you, you feel like it shouldn't affect anybody else.
Exactly.
Or it wouldn't affect anybody else. Sometimes it would be that it shouldn't affect anybody else, which adds a level of judgment that also people don't want to feel on them, right? But if you say you could take this, or no, you were saying, man, you could tell me about my mother all you want. That's not going to bother me. But somebody tell Robert about it and he knocked them out in a bar. Then you will say, but why you get on so? So that's a level of judgment you don't understand. But somebody loses their job, their child run away, their wife on them, and then they decide to drive off a cliff. why would he do that? You don't know how it would have affected you personally. And to get back to Johan, say when people are saying nothing could break me, nothing has broken you yet. But you have been lucky enough to not have a cascade of things happen to you in just short enough a time that your stress levels were maxed out and you snapped, whatever it was. But if you notice somebody acting out a character, the jovial one in the room is sitting quietly, all it will take meaningfully, and especially from a male friend, is, bro, you're good? Not, hey, you're good, or, bro, you're good? Are you okay? And I promise you, if that is asked sincerely, that makes a huge difference. I was going through it during COVID, and me and some friends of mine were talking just through WhatsApp, and a couple of us were checking on each other occasionally, make sure we're working out, that kind of thing, staying fit, staying busy. And I was in the middle of a workout, just on full autopilot, and a friend of mine messaged me and like, bro, you okay? And I knew he meant it. It was like, hey, what's he saying? Bro, you okay? And tears, one time, middle of the workout, and immediately felt better. I mean, crying helps. It's a catharsis, but knowing somebody checked in on me at the right moment immediately feels better.
I could relate to that.
Hold on, David. Hold on, because I want to have like I said, I had a conversation with Franz before, and I use the term with Franz talking about rags to riches, meaning where he was at his breaking point and what he wanted to do, and where he is now and how he's turned that over. But before I go in, you're good?
Yeah, I'm good. Right,
you're good. So and because it's important to share that story, because many persons don't know where to turn, and in that period, you also think that you're the only one. You're the only one going through that.
Correct. So what he's referring to is a suicide attempt. Two, actually, over the course of a couple of years. The first one was during COVID, when we were all under lockdown. All my normal coping mechanisms for stress were removed. I couldn't go by Franz to Lime, couldn't go by a bar, couldn't go to the gym to work out, couldn't go to the dojang to spar, couldn't go to the dojo to roll. So all of my coping mechanisms were removed. And I was also unemployed. My wife was employed, so she was working, luckily. Well, what did they call it?
Essential.
She was an essential worker, correct. So luckily. And I had my then 3-year-old, 4-year-old son to keep occupied and keep educated. I have never been a patient person. The crux of my mental health issues was always rage from very young. And so in attempting to educate a 4-year-old, when you don't know what's happening day to day because of the COVID lockdowns, rules changing all the time, no stress relief at all. My temper was like that, right? So he and I would have these massive fallouts. So stress and stress and stress, no relief in sight. And because of my rage issues, I tended to, from a very young age, turn it inward. Because I was terrified of hurting people if I put my hands on them. From since I was small, I had a really bad temper. So I would hit doors and I would break chairs and then I was a menace in my house. But I would never hit people because I was terrified of what I would do to them. And I would try not to carry on with them because I would also eviscerate them in a conversation and make them feel terrible. And I didn't want to do that. So I tended to turn my rage inward. And that, somewhere in teenagehood, turned into extreme self-loathing and suicidal ideation. Maybe I just shouldn't be here. So fast forward 20-some-odd years to COVID, and it's like, right, well, I just shouldn't be here anymore. I'm not contributing to the household as a productive member. As far as I'm concerned, I'm badly affecting my son's mental health because all he and I are doing is fighting. And my wife can't really help because she's keeping the lights on and the roof overhead. We had just bought a house. So first mortgage payment was during COVID. And I just lost my job.
Wow.
So what started happening with me was what would normally be irritations started becoming debilitating. So y'all ever used to watch wrestling, like in the 90s
Yeah.
and early 2000s? Remember Mankind?
Mm-hmm.
Remember Mankind
Yeah.
would just sit in a corner and rock?
And rock, yeah. With the missing tooth.
So, like, too much stimulus in a room. Somebody's talking to me, the TV's on, and then somebody turns on the blender. I would freeze up, and I would have to go sit in a room, and I would be rocking like this just because I was completely overstimulated, and I needed to calm myself down. So, when we're talking about breaking point, I decided I had activated a plan. So I started planning. We were talking beforehand whether it's long term or if it's just a snap. I tended to plan. And what may have been a mechanism for me, like a safety mechanism for me, is I would always put it off for some arbitrary reason. I can't do it here because it's too close to Christmas. It'll mess up family time. I can't do it here because it's my dad's birthday. I don't want him associating this with his own birthday. And eventually the spell will snap and I'll be all right. I'll wake up one morning and I'll be fine.
So in that long-term plan, in your planning, you were still being thoughtful to everyone else around you.
Yeah. So people think that one of the things people like to bandy about people who attempt or succeed in suicide is they're being very selfish. And, they don't think about anybody else. All I did was think about anybody else. I think they'd be better off in the moment, in the months leading up, because the plan could go on for months, and I'm just on autopilot and smiling at people and laughing when I normally would. My temper will be a little short, but I've always had a bad temper, so nobody thinks that's too out of character. Anyway.
But never swaying from the plan. The plan
There
was still...
There was a plan, and it's going to happen. And then one day I wake up and I'll be feeling better. Or something will happen to activate a level of catharsis that I needed. Maybe I just needed a really good cry, like a sobbing cry. And then you feel better. And like coming out of it, it feels like a spell has been lifted. It is bizarre. Anyway, so in the midst of the plan, my plan was on this particular day, I would go see this person, do what I had to do, and then on the way home, find somewhere to pull over and do what I had to do. That morning, so that was going to be that afternoon, maybe doing the thing with the person is going to pull me out of it, because generally those activities do. Talking about work, by the way, in case anybody has any, those activities do. So normally that puts me in a better mood anyway, so I'll get to delay, subconsciously. There was a buzzsaw going in my house that morning. Wood was being cut, and I couldn't take it anymore. I was like, right, I'm gone. I just picked up my keys and I left. Swept up downstairs, because you had to leave the place clean. And I left, and I just started driving. And I decided I needed to find somewhere to sit and watch the sea and do what I needed to do. That was part of the plan. And I ended up from San Fernando all the way on the foreshore to sit and do this thing. Turn off my phone. No, I did not turn off my phone. But I just disappeared. Nobody knew where I went. Phone started ringing after a couple hours. And that was part of my plan too, is that, now you all care. Now you all, nobody really seemed to care while I was going through this. Because in my mind, it's obvious that, the signs are obvious, but we learn to hide it so well, nobody can tell. Nobody. People look me in my face and not know anything is going on. So I told myself I was using my phone ringing as fuel to the fire. This is going to get me through, because I was worried that I would lose my nerve and not be able to do what I wanted to do. And then driving through Port of Spain and whatnot, I started realizing where I was going and to do what. And I was terrified. I can't believe this is what I'm going to do, but I couldn't stop doing what I was going to do. And I remember just wishing somebody I knew would drive by and see me and call or flash or, hey, what you doing here? And then I would tell them. But that didn't happen. So I reached where I was going to go. My method was going to be And I sat there and it started to rain. I was like, right, perfect. This is even better. It's so romantic. It's raining and the sea is right there and cool. Here we go. And then my hand just wouldn't move. And I disassociated a bit. To this day, I still think I answered a phone call. So I sat there for hours. You ever saw Lethal Weapon, the first one, where Mel Gibson sits with the gun and he can't pull the trigger and then he starts yelling and then he just gets up and goes to work? So I sat there. My hand just wouldn't move. And I got really, really angry. And then I thought I answered a phone call, finally, from my wife. But on the drive home, when I told her that, she's like, no, you didn't answer a phone call. You called me. I was like, oh, okay. I still don't remember making that call. So I called her to tell her where I was. And also in my head, I'm driving down the road telling her that I called her. She was driving, telling me that I called her, not she called me. So I also don't remember the drive home because I thought I was driving. Like, that's what my memory tells me is I drove home. She drove home. So disassociation. And so she called my parents. My parents were also trying to call me. They called my brothers, two of whom lived in Port of Spain. One of them got there and jumped in the car. And he was the right person at the time because he and I have very similar morbid senses of humor. So we actually laughed about it a little bit then. And then my wife got there, she drove me home. But the breaking point was a saw. So it was COVID lockdown, unemployment, global pandemic, stress with the child, absolutely no outlets for said stress. And then a saw was the breaking point, was that breaking point. And so that's that story.
There's a lot to unfold in that story, and thank you, Franz, for sharing it. I know we want to hear about the second attempt. We're going to take a short break, but there's a lot to unfold in there, a lot to unpack. The cry for help, the many moments that there was a cry for help, that you wanted someone to reach out to stop that. The stresses of being a single parent, because even though the wife was out working, you are still there. And how do you cope? How do you cope with that? Not being a provider. There's just so many things in there for us to unfold. But we're taking a short break and we come back talking about breaking point and manhood.
This is manhood, and we're discussing your breaking point and even asking the question, what is your breaking point? And before we went to the break, Franz, one, I appreciate that you even sharing this because I think that, one, I could relate to it, and two, I think many men and many people watching could relate to it because all of us, and I'm being very liberal to say this, all of us have had suicidal ideations. And let me explain. If you look at it like a meter from low to high to dangerous, right? Whenever we don't have the solution to a problem, our brain thinks, I don't want to be part of this. So it could start mild as, I could just disappear, yes? Right? I could go and sleep for weeks. Then it could start, I wish I wasn't born. I wish I wasn't here. Right? And then if that persists for a period of time from suicidal ideations, it could go all the way to suicidal. And I'm putting it that way because everybody have had a situation where I don't know what the solution is. And then the situation happen, and then you're dealing with that, and then another situation happen, and keep going there. So it's not that we intend to be suicidal or we intend, but in a moment, we don't know what to do. So I'll go in one. And then two, anger. And I've been doing some research on anger to understand what exactly anger is. Yes, we know it's an emotion. We hear that a million times. We look at the dictionary, it says increased or intense level of annoyance. But what I realize anger is, and tell me if this resonates with you all, is when we don't have the solution to change reality.
You're out of control.
in the
That's what-
moment, wherever the reality is, we don't like it, but we don't have the solution for it. So the only thing we could do is some sort of rage, is to mash it up. So let me say, I'm trying to figure out a puzzle. I can't figure this thing out. Yes, you mash up the puzzle. Trying to help somebody I really love, but I don't know how to help them. I mightn't hurt them, but I turn and I want to direct it. So anger is when we don't have the solution to the reality we want to change in that moment. And if enough of that happens, because the reality, the crux is I have no solution or no perceived solution at that moment. And if enough of that happens, then I don't want to be here anymore, or I just want to mash up everything. Tell me your thoughts.
I want to answer that you answer because again, if you're not in control, you're out of control, and not being in control of something, and you don't have the right tools in place to know how to deal with it, and then sometimes mashing up that puzzle gives you a release, and in that release you feel better, even though you now have a mashed up puzzle or furniture or whatever the case may be.
You know why? And Franz, you alluded to it before. You're saying sometimes in the planning, some days you have a good cry, and all of a sudden you lose it. And let me explain. All of us want, and I could say all of us want a sense of satisfaction. Right? And let me explain what satisfaction is. I intend to do a task, and I complete the task. I'm satisfied. So you have intent. So look at it like a circle. I have an intent, and I execute it, and it's done. The circle is complete. The loop is complete, and it disappears. But if I have an intent to do something, and it's not complete, then they just kind of have a half a circle, and then something else occurs, and something else occurs, and then what starts to happen is those incomplete intentions is like cobweb in your mind. So I go in it satisfied. So I went to build the puzzle, creating and finishing the puzzle. I see it, I feel satisfied, but I can't figure it out. So you know what? I need to execute something to get that same sense of satisfaction. So if using that from a micro level for anything, years, I want to go and study. I want to do this profession. I want to marry this person. I want to have a family. I just go in. I want to do this. I want to do this. And you spend years of unfulfilled intentions or unfulfilled, and you're not satisfied. Eventually, you'll feel like, well, what am I really doing all of this for? I don't have a solution. And I could go in from micro to macro. So that's why when the straw, which could be the most random thing, that is still part of the dissatisfaction, you know. Maybe you went to get a biscuit in the grocery, and the grocery don't have the biscuit. Why all they don't have it? And
Or the biscuit still.
Right, all the biscuits still.
Worse. You get the biscuit,
You get the biscuit and then it's still.
Right, but you understand how trivial the thing that break the back is, but it adds as part of it. And I'm saying that because as men, many times we hold what we really want to do and nothing wrong with it, trying to help others. But if we do too much of that, then we become this ball of dissatisfaction, and notice what I'm doing here, and you see how tense I am. That's how you feel. You might look at the person and they're looking normal, but inside the tense. So after a while, that's something have to release.
And it's the distress. What I want to, because I'm sure for reasons of cathartism and also for us to know, as we break it down, I want to hear about the second attempt. But I want to break down the first one, Franz. And there's so many things inside of there that I can certainly relate with, and I'm sure everyone can relate with. There was a definite cry for help at certain points where you wanted the phone to ring, or you left your phone on, all of these different things, because you wanted someone to stop, or you wanted to be heard. You wanted to say, hey, look, I'm here. I want to be seen. So I want to talk a bit about the cry for help, but also the levels inside of there that people don't understand about raising a child and not having a playbook to know exactly what to do and to deal with those stresses. And it is a stress because you know that this child is in your image and likeness. You now have the duty to raise this child, and they're looking at everything that you're doing, and you may not be feeling totally fulfilled yourself, and you now have this responsibility. And then there's the provider, a man to provide, and you're now feeling less than because you can't do it. And you're seeing your wife, who's an essential worker, coming back probably very tired at the end of the day. And you're asking yourself, even though you are fulfilling a major part to providing for the family, the outlook of a Mr. Mom or a stay-at-home dad in certain environments, especially macho environments, is not one that we are very open to. And I mean, I see it differently. I have no issues with it because I've been through that situation before. But all of these things, I'm sure, led to being several bales of straw to what then became the catalyst, which came about, of course, whatever the anger issues may have stemmed from, which in itself is another topic for discussion.
I think there's no manual for child rearing or child raising. We learn that all the time. It's trial and error. So with the 4-year-old experience, I mean, we all have kids. I went through it. You don't know what to do. I remember coming home one evening from radio, and my wife was like, just take your son. You know, I had a long day. I was working 2 jobs, and I came off radio midnight on a shift, and I reached home, and she's just, take your child. And then for the next 4.5 hours, I am in the living room walking this child and don't know what to do. And he is crying uncontrollably. Until around 4:30, minutes to 5, she feels sorry. She opened the door and came outside. She locked the door. I couldn't even go in the bedroom. So I walking through the whole house for 4 hours. And I am tired, but I don't know what to do. So there was no playbook. So my stress levels went from 0 to 100 very quickly. But I'm mindful as a child. He's what, a year? Barely a year and something. How am I getting him to calm down? Why is he crying? Fed, what is the problem? I had, to this day.
And your energy is not helping either.
And
It is maddening.
my vibe is just not vibing, and I am not lying. I'm thinking about it, and I'm just remembering, you know, what I went through. And that went on for a while. That wasn't just one night. I would come home from work, and she'd just take your child. And in my mind, you home wholly. You had to rest. He would have slept. But I'm coming home stressed out and tired, and then take your child. And now she's angry, and I had to take this child.
And for her, in her defense, she's probably thinking quite the opposite. Like, hey, I have been here dealing with this child the whole day.
Yeah.
You got your chance to be outside, to socialize, etc. And it's just the communication.
And that is what resonated in my mind. But there's a point I want to touch on, Franz, that he mentioned, and I feel it would be remiss of us if we miss this point. When somebody attempts suicide, are they being selfish? And I will tell you a resounding no. We have all been there. We've all had those thoughts. And he said something very important that I could thoroughly relate to. We removing ourselves from the situation is what we feel is best for everybody at that point in time. So it's quite the opposite. And I want to watch this camera and tell persons at home, somebody makes that attempt, do not for a minute think that person was being selfish or looking for attention. I am almost certain, 99% of the time, they are not selfish. They're seeing themselves as the problem. Because I've been there. And you feel, well, look, I can't do nothing right. I am the problem. And if I move and I'm not there no more,
all will be well.
All will be well.
But Franz, since that's happened, because what we have in probably you giving the story on your second attempt, I'm assuming your wife knows, and your son is how old now?
He's 9 now.
So at some point, I mean, this is they will know of the story, and your wife knows of the story. When you realize now what you mean to them and what you mean to your friends. And I know at that point you're saying about it's not selfish, but now you realize, wow, your son could look at you now and say, Dad, you were really going to leave me? Or your wife looks at you and says, you know, you would really have widowed me? And how much you do mean to them. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts now?
Well, in lucid moments, like I can appreciate that, you know, you were going to just kind of, because it's abandonment, basically, right, in the most traumatic way. And in lucid moments, I can't believe. Like I said, I was freaking out. I was freaked out afterwards it felt like a week. I was just kind of in a fog, just kind of PTSD state. And I couldn't believe that this is what I tried to do, because by then I'd kind of come out of it and I was lucid. in depressed moments, you go right back to that train of thought in that, yeah, everybody will just be better off without me. So it's like I say, it's like being under a spell. This fog, you're not thinking clearly, and the way the brain works, she could attest to, you run down this old train of thought that you had. As much as you're trying to train your way out of thinking that way, it's a familiar neural path. Thoughts just run down, and you get right back to the same place if you don't put the things in place, train your brain, so to speak.
Which took you to the second attempt.
So you mentioned the cry for help, but it was really an internal scream. I didn't actually reach out to anybody, right? Before that, before the first attempt, there was a cry for help after a major breakdown. I cried for maybe 45 minutes straight, like sobbed loud. And I told my wife, like, listen, I'm having really bad thoughts. I need professional help. I can't do this on my own anymore. And I did go to therapy, and therapy was helping. But day to day, I couldn't function because of just how anxious I'd become, the overstimulation and whatnot. So I decided I wanted to go on medication just to help even me out, to get me through the day, because therapy is a really long-term, talk therapy is a really long-term solution. Day to day, it wasn't helping. So I actually went to see a psychiatrist because I'd been seeing a psychologist before. I went to see a psychiatrist who can prescribe meds. And the act of being prescribed medication was one of the things that pushed me into planning. It didn't push me into the moment because that was the so. But the act, because I had grown up with this stigma that a lot of people have of you shouldn't need medication to function like a normal adult, right? I shouldn't need medication. I don't care about you. You could use medication if you want. That's cool. You doing what you need to do, good for you. I shouldn't need medication because I'm a big man and I should be able to handle this on my own, which is stupid. Not stupid. That's harsh. But it's unfair to you because if it's fine for everybody else, your brain just doesn't work the way neurotypical brains work. And to flash even further back, I was physically traumatized at 1 year old. I was burned really, really badly. And like 80% of me was covered in burns. And I think it was second-degree burns. And for 2 weeks, I couldn't be touched, held, I couldn't wear clothes at 1. So, I mean, just screaming in a crib. So having spoken to a traumatologist, your brain develops differently if you are physically traumatized that early in life. So my brain just literally did not work like everybody else's. And when it got to that level of stress, I needed something to even me out, which I appreciate now. At the time, I was really judgmental of myself. You should be stronger than this. And the act of being prescribed meds really affected me. And I got home, and my wife had it that day. So she had hit her breaking point. And I was like, I'm going out. And she jumped in the car and left the second I got home. So just like you were saying, the second you get home, hold your child, I gone. She had hit her limit. She had no idea what I was going through. I need to leave because she's protecting her peace. She left. And those two things happen at the same time. You should be stronger than this. And then she busts out. It's like, you see, I'm not helping anything here, you know. And so that started me down the planning stage. So I know I gave you all a few other things to unpack there, early childhood trauma and medication and whatnot. So therapy was helping. My therapist showed up when they called him to tell them what I had tried to do. Lovely, lovely man. Big up yourself, Dominic. And after that, I got pretty good. I started back training Taekwondo because I'd stopped for a while. So we were starting to come out of lockdowns. I got my son into training. And what started happening was I would drop him off to training and then I'd just be somewhere else in the park. And then I'd take him from class and go. And I would move closer to the class while class was going on during training. And then eventually I was sitting down outside the class watching training and encouraging him, occasionally overstepping like some parents would. No, don't do that. Don't do it
Become the
like
coach.
that.
Yeah, parent
and
coach.
The instructor would say, I got it. And because Sabum, that's the term for instructor in Taekwondo, it's Korean, so it's not sensei, Sabum. Because he probably got fed up with me coaching from the sidelines, like, Sir Franz, you want to come inside and help? So then I started helping him teach class. And then he said, well, why don't you come in Dobok in uniform next time and help out? And so I became involved in the Taekwondo again. And helping kids learn a move, like watching them unlock a spinning kick or something, is really rewarding. So the therapy was helping, getting back into not just practicing, but helping teach. Really, really rewarding. So that helped put me on a path to recovery, an accelerated path to recovery, I should say. I applied for a new job. I got through with that. So like things were building.
Purpose.
Yeah, things were building momentum in the right way rather than the wrong way. And again, COVID was done. I could go out again. I could train again. So gyms, I had access to my stress relief mechanisms as well. So we were moving forward. The new job I got was a lot more responsibility than I'd had in my previous job. I hit the ground running. I loved that job. I loved the team they let me pick to have around me. I loved the facility I was managing. Loved it. And then it became too much. Because at the time, so I started off running one facility. It became two facilities, two 24-hour facilities. I was the manager. My phone rang constantly. And all hours of the night, certain staff members don't know how to solve problems on their own. They'll call the boss 3 o'clock in the morning to tell me about something that you really should be able to handle on your own. So there were deficiencies in my management style that I allowed that to happen in the first place. But I wasn't sleeping well. There was stress at work, stress at home. And so I started running down the path. Again, I hadn't been to therapy for a while. I had to stop teaching Taekwondo and training because of the hours of these. So
coping mechanisms.
So again, coping mechanisms were taken away while stress was building up. And then I had what is called a sincere attempt. So the first time my hand didn't move, there was intent, but you can't say that I attempted and survived an attempt. This second time, after trying unsuccessfully earlier in the day, I got home and decided, all right, well, when I get home, I'm going to lock myself in the bathroom and I'm going to overdose on some of the medication that I'm back on. And that should be that. Man, I did the math in my head. It's like, if one pill makes me feel like this, then this many should definitely do it. And just in case, I'll take some real strong pain medication and a couple sleeping pills too. And definitely should be fine. Wife goes to put my son to bed. I go lock myself in the bathroom. And this time I did it. It's like there's no hesitation. Right, whap. Drink down everything. Sit down and wait. And then I hear a knock on the door. Like, that was way too soon. He can't be asleep already. Why are you interrupting my process? No, I'm fine. Eventually I open the door. What did you do? She calls my brother. I don't remember anything after that because I took a lot of pills. I woke up the next day, I guess, and I was livid, furious that I had pulled the proverbial trigger and I was still here. Man, I was livid for weeks, just rage, and, back to therapy again. And that took a while to come back down to the wanting to be here. And I left my job because the stress levels, I needed more time than I would be allowed to recover in the job. And to then recover and go right back to the stressful job. So I had to leave the job, which was a regret, because like I say, I love that job. But I wasn't able to manage the stresses of the job well enough. It's not the job, it was me, right? And so again, I'm unemployed by choice this time, not even by choice, by force, because it would have killed me again. You can't just go right back to it. Back in therapy, now I have time. So back to training Taekwondo and helping teach again, and then teaching again, and then, so,
What's your wife's anxiety like at this point? Because she knows it's, your second attempt.
Yeah.
She was there. You were angry for weeks after your life was being saved.
She had anxiety before anyway. So for a long time, to this day, I still message whenever I get anywhere, I'm here. Because the first time I went on a drive to never come back. So she's dealt with a lot. Thanks for bringing that up. She's dealt with a lot. So her anxiety, if I have low moments, like I was having earlier this week actually, she's wary. You okay? Yeah, just tired. You sure? Yeah, well, and then if I can elucidate on what it is, this, and this, then it's, okay, no problem. What do you need? And then, I know I have the support. Well, this is what I need. Okay, cool, no problem. You need us to leave? You want to come with? You want to just stay home? What do you need? So her anxiety is, I'm sure she hides it a bit well, but it's definitely up there.
Is she able to hand over the proverbial baby?
Oh, yeah. So that took a while, again, right? I couldn't be left alone for any period of time.
Not you being the baby, but in terms of that when you reach home here.
No, yes.
So she living in that state now is like, okay, where does she get her release? Because she's at a breaking point.
No, I am back to being able to handle that now. But like I said, it took a while. Could not be left home alone for good reason. But eventually you prove yourself enough that I'm better. Yes, I can handle it. It would be, I need to step out for a minute. Are you okay to be home with him? Yeah, I'm fine. Okay. Leave, come back. Everything's good. Step out for 2 minutes. Step out for 10 minutes. Step out for an hour. I need to go out with mommy. Okay, cool. And then, now it's, well, I go in Miami for the week. Cool. We're good. He'll eat oats for breakfast every day. And he'll be thrilled when you get back home.
For me, it's dry pasta.
Daddy,
dry pasta.
Man, Daddy can't cook at all. So
For me, it will be eggs and bread every day.
Yeah, exactly.
Bread and honey. Just what?
that's it.
You survive it.
You eat it.
Man, he lived. So yes, we are back there. She can hand me the baby, and she can take her time that she needs. So yeah, we're back there.
So here's something that I picked up and I think was really plausible, and I think your wife deserves high commendation for
she
this.
absolutely does.
Lots. I mean, I don't know her, but I think she comes in for high praises. Is the support factor that you got. She did not judge you. Whatever you were dealing with, she kept asking you, how can I help? And I think that's a big thing that we miss. When these things happen, instead of judging the person and thinking they were looking for attention, she went the opposite, She started giving you the attention that you needed and the assistance that you needed. And she took small steps, a minute, 5 minutes, 10, 15, an hour, a day. Now it's Miami for a weekend. And you okay. And that's the point I think we should drive home. Support the person, that network. And she was the best person to give it to you. She's the closest to you. That's your wife, and she comes in for good comment. Not that anybody else's wife don't come in, but I'm just saying, because of this, of what you went through, I think that was awesome.
And a good point for us to take a break on.
This is Manhood, and we are discussing breaking points. And I know we went down a pretty heavy road there with, the attempts and the breaking points. And so now we could talk about what has gotten me out of it. Well, you saw the general thread, Taekwondo played a big part in it. But, I don't teach Taekwondo all day long. When I'm home, Davy mentioned as we were going for a break, I have a wonderful support system from my wife. My son is very loving. My brother, I have 3 brothers. I have a lot of really good friends. They check in occasionally. This is the most public I've spoken about this, so now more people are going to know. But I have talked about it over the years writing, which is where Chantal would have seen a lot of these things to have me recommended to come on. So people who do know, they message every now and then to check in. And that's one of the things that I use to help me when I feel myself starting to get low. Remember these people checked in. Remember that time this brethren of yours who you're not really close with messaged this long thing. I noticed I haven't seen you on social media recently. I know you tend to go through your things. I hope you're doing okay. Like those messages, I keep that in my pocket for when I'm thinking, man, nobody cares. Yeah, but remember when this brethren did that?
Is there, Franz, because you mentioned this is the most public, but I guarantee you that most people in their private life looking at this are going through very similar things or may go through it. Do you think that you will want to be an advocate at some point? Is there how there's an Alcoholics Anonymous? Is there? I know there are lines. There's the suicide lines and watch that people can call into. But is there like meetings where there's a not necessarily persons who not everyone there would have attempted it, but where you can go on
And share.
so that you don't reach the breaking point.
I honestly don't know if there are meetings like that, but advocacy that's why I started writing. I've always been a kind of I went through it, so I don't need anybody else to go through it. Person, like I learned to swim when my father threw me in a pool. Like those 80s parents.
Again, you're not alone.
Yeah. So that was at like 5 or 6. And when it was time for my brother to learn to swim, I told my father, I'll handle it. I'll teach him. And so having gone through this, I realized that people don't really talk about it. And then you see the stats where for every successful suicide, there were 8 attempts or something like that. 8 other people attempted. That is astounding numbers. In Trinidad alone, I mean, that is thousands of people attempting suicide every year.
And the funny thing about it is, I think we mentioned it already, more women attempt it, but more men are successful at it.
Because you see men get things done. Anyway, morbid humor.
Yeah.
So the advocacy is writing about it and coming on shows that are kind enough to have me on to talk about it. Whether there's an actual group that meets, I don't know. But I am always astounded every time I go on a radio program like I was on with Davy last year before, a program like this, so I write something. The types of men who come out and say, bro, I was there, is mind-blowing. One of the most driven, most accomplished men I probably will ever know. Very quietly in a bar, some night we were out celebrating something, and he's like, I really appreciate what you were saying the other night on, maybe it was a podcast or something, because I've been there, and he never thought it would happen to him, because like I say, a very driven man, and he was just laid low by circumstance after circumstance after circumstance. He didn't attempt, but he was planning, and then, something got him out of it. When we were on the program, men were calling in.
I was about to say that.
It was a powerful, powerful moment because we were taking calls.
Yeah, persons were crying.
Yeah.
Persons were crying. It was a very, very, very powerful show that we did that afternoon. And I can tell you, people are going through it. And the thing about it is, create safe spaces for men. That's what I'm looking for right now, Robert, Johansi and Franz. We need to create a safe space so we could talk. And listen.
We have one right here and we talking.
Well, I like understand.
And we talking. We call manhood. We say manhood is we used to say a safe space, but now we say it's a space of courage because it took a lot of courage for you to start having those conversations.
Yeah.
And you would have had those conversations initially from a space of thinking you're alone. Mm-hmm. Thinking you're alone, you alone are going through what you're going through. Now, specifically, you were going through that alone, but in terms of from a general perspective, in terms of the co-parenting or the loss of a job, the need to provide, the anger issues, the traumatic beginnings, you're not alone. So the things that brought it all together, and only when you start to have those conversations like we do on manhood, do you realize, hey, everybody fighting, everybody going through their own levels of trauma, not knowing how to cope. And what is ironic is that even though we're all going through this, the language that we use, which is why we always say we aim to be better as brothers, it's still one of very nonchalant, apathetic discourse or dialogue, in just using phrases like, what you saying, how you doing, you good? Very surface level. Because I guarantee you, someone passes and you go, hey, you good? Or how are you? And I go, well, boy, yesterday I had this going through.
That's not what I was looking for in this exchange, sir.
Pal,
Just say, yeah, man, I did, so I could go on my way.
Which is what we do. And it might be that point that you're on your way. Like how you said you just wanted someone to flash their lights. Or somebody at that point. You never know where that person is on their journey. And it's the onus is on us to really be a bit more thoughtful or caring above ourselves. And I know the pandemic, there's all this psychology behind what the pandemic has caused. It's really caused a lot of people to go into deeper levels of survivorship, into their own communities, being very apathetic to the environment, anger. All of these things have occurred. But through podcasts like this, other things that we can do in our own levels of advocacy, to be there, to listen, to hear, and to cry. You see, you mentioned that several times. Crying, one thing I try with my son where he goes, and I realize it's the way I say it. Sometimes something happens and I go, did you cry? And I don't want him to think, oh no, crying is a bad thing. Like, big man don't cry or boys don't cry. I actually ask him because I want to know, for me, the level of the hit or the level of like, is it something that I should be more concerned about? But crying is cool.
Yep.
Well, you see, all of us, you have to release it,
Yeah.
Right?
Somehow.
Emotions are energy that fuels your action. So think about it like, for those who did physics, potential to kinetic energy. When you feel an emotion, it's potential energy, right? And if I say, I don't want to feel this, I'm pushing it down inside. It don't disappear, It's still there.
Suppressed.
And then you push and you keep pushing and you push, and eventually it will burst. So that's why something like taekwondo, getting out the energy. Something like crying, getting out the energy. We were speaking before why sometimes people go for tattoos. When they get the pain, the energy, they seep out your system. Right?
This has never helped, just by the way. Like, I just like it. But I know people who go to get tattoos and like, man, I felt so good. Like, that pain was enjoyable.
Right, for some people.
Yeah, I'm not one of those people. But some people, yes, you're right.
Right. So all of us finding, and we speak about the coping mechanisms to get the energy out. Talk therapy, we talking now is energy we getting out of our system. And I'm saying that because it could be easier than you think, right? Do something. Sometimes you're feeling down home, you get up, you clean something. You just, the movement of it, you get up, you just walk. You don't have to run, you don't have to jog, you don't have to it's not sweat. You just walk around the park, you walk around your block, just the movement of it. And I'm saying that because sometimes when we feel depressed, we stay stuck. We stay still. When the energy inside of us, it's stuck there. But if we just move, we'll be able to get some of it out.
Action is the antidote to anxiety, is the way I look at that. Because it could just be as simple as getting up and washing ways. Instead of sitting down, people say sitting down feeling sorry for yourself or whatever. If you sit and you start to ruminate and your mind just starts to run down these rabbit holes, instead of doing that, if you have the presence of mind to get up and this needs doing, do it. And as the loop you were talking about earlier, satisfaction, thing done, spell broken. That could be all it is. We were talking about safe spaces just now. In the aftermath of the first attempt, the only people who knew about it were my immediate family. My wife, my son, parents. brothers. So the only people I could socialize with was them, because I had no mask to put back on to go out into society. So that was my safe space to be able to go out. Call up one of my brothers, go over by them, go over by my father, whether it's to have a drink or just have a chat or go play pool or something. It was them. And then I expanded that space by just randomly telling a friend of mine, not a random friend, but randomly telling a friend of mine. And his reaction in the moment, because I just dropped it on him. We out shooting pool, and he's like, "So how things were?" Like, "Well, I tried to kill myself last week," and he's like, he didn't even react that much, like the way you just went. He didn't even do that. He was standing pool cue in his hand, and it's, and how you doing now? And that was it. So like certain people, you can tell, and their reactions are spot on. And that expanded my safe space, because now he knows. And now I don't have to pretend in front of him. So that's something that I've done. That's one of my coping mechanisms.
Which you just said about now he knows, and you're expanding your support system. But in the reaction, my reaction versus his, which would you be more open to? Which seemed more genuine? Is it the way that you...
They're both genuine. So yours was shock. His was calm. I mean, I'm sure I shocked him into stillness. Some people freeze, and others they move to make sure they have space to
Which
fight
one
or flight.
makes you feel more...
His reaction in the moment was perfect.
Right.
There was no histrionics, no, oh my gosh, just...
You don't need any of that at that point. It's like, I'm
don't.
here, just talk to me.
This is because I just laid it out just like that. And the response was, "And okay, so how are you doing now?" And then it was off to the races. But as you said, it's just that easy, depending on the friend or even the spouse. So we were giving my wife her flowers earlier. I had a coworker, and this is something people can look out for in terms of changes of character of people.
And I want you to take it into your closing thoughts as well.
Sure. So I had a coworker. It was Monday. And it was a Monday evening, and he walked by and he's like, "Franz, when you finish work, check me in the bar across the way now." I was like, "Bro, it's Monday." No. He's like, when you finish now, when you finish. I know you're busy. And he walked off. Came back about a half hour later. What time you wrapping up? Because, when you finish, just one beer now, just one beer. I was like, what's this Monday? It is the busiest day of my week. Maybe, I'll see. Run off to do something else. Pops by again. Franz, don't forget me. All right, cool, bro. Walks off again. He left. I was walking by the front door. He pops his head in. "Franz, please, one beer." I was like, all right, something wrong here. So I was like, okay, no, I'll come in now. So we went across and we sat down. He's like, "Man, I'm where you were," because of what I'd written and what I'd said. And so we sat and we talked for a while. And I told him how when I tell my wife that I'm going through something, her response is, "What do you need?" He said when he tells his wife, she uses it against him in an argument. So, don't do that. You need to know who your safe space is. If that is how somebody in your space is reacting to you, that is not your people, honestly. I mean, if it's your wife, you'll have a lot to work out. If it's your friend, he can't be your friend no more. Or at least you know where to put him. I can't talk to you about this. Because there's friends of mine I'm not going to call up and confide anything in. That doesn't make them any worse friends. There's friends of mine that all I need to do is send, this is a code my friend and I worked out, an emoji of a car. That means swing. I need to get out of the house. No questions asked are coming. So creating a safe space is important. You have to filter that strongly, who you allow to be around you. Because if they're going to use this against you, they could kill you, quite literally. Introspection is something I've done a lot of with the help of talk therapy, learning how to ask questions of yourself. Why am I feeling this way? Like the actual reason, not because I'm not crying because the paper towel ripped funny. What would have led to that? And okay, if you are feeling this way, what can you do to improve it? So if you're feeling at a 4, how do we get to maybe a 6? And then once you're there, how do you get to an 8? So being able to identify your feelings in the moment is very helpful, because then you know what to address. And that's something I learned to do through therapy. So going to a therapist also helps. If it's it has to be the right therapist. We were just talking off air about what the wrong therapist can do. But if you find the right fit of a therapist, it opens up a whole new world to understanding yourself. And then once you understand yourself, then you can act better. We were talking about rage, and anger. Anger is not the issue. To me, it's not an issue. Anger is an emotion. Rage is the issue. That is the loss of control. And only very recently did I have the epiphany that I focused a lot of that rage internally, and that's why I would lead myself down these roads. And realizing that, I stopped. Not immediately, but I've started putting things in place. Are you being fair to yourself? Should this rage be directed at somebody else? And if yes, maybe tone down the rage and address it appropriately, but no longer turn it on yourself, because it was a habit. I would make everything my fault, even when it absolutely was not. So, safe spaces, asking for help, because I asked to go to therapy, and therapy helped. Asking for help, being very clear on what you need with the people who ask you, what do you need? Because telling them, nah, good, doesn't help. It also robs them of the chance to help you, because they want to help you. If they've asked, what do you need? Then letting them help you is almost an act of service to them. Let them help you. They want you to be better. So letting people help when you know they want to help, creating your own safe space, introspection, and talking kindly to yourself is something I'm still working on. But I'll hopefully get a bit better. So those are my coping mechanisms recently. Also, martial arts. I can't recommend that enough for release, for achievement, for bonding, because everybody who trains martial arts hard, they're going through something. Whether they're just really aggressive people and they want a safe space to get it out, or they have anger issues, or they're depressed, or if they're there to train hard and get hit and get choked, normal people don't do that. It's a lot of fun, but most people can't psych themselves up to go and get hit in the face. It is, sublimation. You channel these socially unacceptable impulses into socially acceptable pastimes. Martial arts is a great outlet, especially for camaraderie. You could go to the gym and make yourself stronger, but that's usually a one-on-one or one-on-two kind of thing. There are few things like the camaraderie in a training hall, whether you're doing jiu-jitsu or taekwondo or karate, that creates a sense of family and another safe space as well. So I would recommend martial arts to anybody as well.
And Franz is a taekwondo instructor, so yeah. Brief thoughts.
When it comes down to the support system, I think we need to have that. That is essential and very, very crucial and very, very important. Stop looking at the person as trying to be the victim and look at them as being a victim. They need help. And that's what it is, really and truly. It's a cry and an act for help. He said it best. I was just waiting for that phone call. Why you didn't turn off the phone? Because you wanted that help. Mm-hmm. But you didn't. But you're subliminally sending out the message. And what is most noteworthy is when you identify it, help the person genuinely. Help the person genuinely. And don't judge. Because you're not there, so don't judge.
Don't judge. You want to say?
Franz, I appreciate your strength.
Yeah.
And a saying is to any man or anybody watching is that even though you may not have the strength to admit it to someone else, even if first you start with telling yourself the truth, is, I can't handle this, boy. This is a little bit too much for me right now. And I'm not saying that you're going to stop it forever, but maybe you need to take a break. Now, I talking to the camera, talking to everybody, talking to myself too, because many times, sometimes, just slow down. And even the very thing that you love, as you're saying, if it's too much of it, if it's too stressful, you could even start, the thing that you love could become stressful to you. So I'm saying, those looking out, yes, we have a breaking point. Yes, everybody breaking point different, but acknowledging when and being truthful to yourself, when it is, you start to feel something off, find your various coping mechanisms, something to get the energy out of your body. It don't have to be elaborate. It could be washing the wares, taking a walk, doing something else. Even talking gets out the energy, but being honest about your limits is important.
I'm hearing a lot about why we reach to the point that we reach when we reach to those points, that breaking point. And that's the big part of that is internalizing. Look at it as the world is a big place. When you internalize, there's only so much it could go. So there's only damage that could come off that. Release it. Cry. Nothing wrong in crying. Absolutely nothing wrong in crying. I want to take this moment, to thank gentlemen, everyone for sharing. Franz for, starting off in a big way that what is going to be advocacy. Because you're not alone. And many persons, whether it be through your coming to you for taekwondo or to have that conversation, it's certainly something that it needs to be a bigger space of courage. So thank you for that. Thank you to your wife. Big up your wife.
Big up Gillezreau.
Yeah. She's a champion, and I can see why she's an essential worker, and we definitely, I don't know in what field, but we're certainly, blessed to have her, and she's a powerful woman. And my thoughts to the nation are simply, remember, you're not having a bad day, you're having a bad moment. So we're talking about breaking point. Johanse, Franz, Davy, this is Manhood.
Manhood, brought to you in part by Solomon's Bespoke.